Okay, Axel, so let's continue our discussion about social presence. So, how do you see the value of a social presence? How can I measure is my social presence does it make sense for other people?
Yeah, that's a good question. That's actually something I was just working on recently. Because as we understand that the presence is of value, the big question obviously is, what is the value? Can we measure it? And only if we can measure it, we can manage it and so forth. So we looked into presences from the last basically 2 years. I mean, literally hundreds of thousands of presences, and try to understand and identify what is it, what constitutes the value. And we came up with something which we found is actually very interesting. The value can really be measured by, I call it social traffic. The more people are attracted to a certain presence, and the more people look at a certain presence, and the more people actually reference somebody's presence, the higher the value. So it's a very simple way of doing it. And so we came up with that XeePV is the CME-based presence value. And what we do is basically we calculate the traffic into a CME, so how many people look up a CME, and then we look up how many people look from that CME into the various social presences. So I'm CME.com AxelS, so I get, let's say, 100 visits on my CME. The key is now how many people actually look up the sites on my CME, how many people look at my Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and so forth. And here was a huge surprise, even for me. It was a huge surprise seeing that a lot of people look at my Stumble Upon. A lot of people just recently looked at my Simplify, because I just started with Simplify. And so people are really interested in these other sites. And so what we're doing is we measure the traffic into a CME, and then we measure the traffic out of the CME, and there's a thing in the between called amplification factor. And it's actually very simple. So you have your blog or your Facebook or your LinkedIn profile and Twitter. So when somebody looks up your Twitter profile and clicks on the link on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, whatever it's on there, the amplification factor is 1, because one goes in and one goes out. So now if you put the same thing on CME, so people look up your CME, that's 1 click, but then they say, oh, I want to look at this or that profile. I also want to look what he or she does on Stumble, for instance, or on, Quora, or on, oh, this guy is on Empire Avenue, then let's look there. So my amplification factor is 5 if I get 1 links into CME and 5 links out to it. And so these are things we measure, and the sum of all this, it's now quite sophisticated algorithm, is actually the XeePV. So the presence value is calculated in XeePV, where we look at traffic, amplification factor, and a couple other things.
Thanks. If you compare, Axel, now, I'm using cloud, I'm using peer index, yeah? Mm-hmm. How would you differentiate the XeePV versus my cloud factor or my peer index?
Very good question. So that's an awesome one. See, when we go back to what I said earlier, we have these 4 major pillars: presence, we have content, and so forth. Cloud is measuring basically your content contribution to your network. So it's one of these 4 elements, and cloud does a good job. And I wasn't so sure in the beginning whether this is the right way to do, but the way they developed was very interesting. So there are other people now contributing to your cloud factor by giving you cloud. Similarly, XeePV is basically the same kind of measure, but now for your presence. The big difference on XeePV compared to most others is that your personal influence into the XeePV is relatively small. It's all about the traffic from others. So it's not about you, it's about what others do with your presence. Meaning, if you have an attractive presence and you share it and people recognize it and do something with it, that is where your XeePV goes up. So most of us in the social web try to actually measure things others do around your content or your network. So like the followers on Twitter is an indication for your network size. Cloud is an indication for your content contribution. And XeePV is an indication for your social presence.
Okay, thanks. So it's 4:30. I just checked your Foursquare link, and it's 4:30. It's time for gin tonic on the boat.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Okay, thanks, Axel.
Thank you very much.